Welcome to FoxLearn. Today we will learn how to use DataTable. The DataTable is a central object in the ADO.NET library. Other objects that use the DataTable include the dataset and the data view. A dataset can contain two DataTable objects that have the same table name property value but different namespace property values. DataTable can be placed in a using statement. This can help programs' performance. Often the using block construct helps improve resource management. You can set the name for a data table when you knew a data table. For example, we will set the name of data table is test. We can add columns and rows to the data table instance inside the using block. If you are creating a data table programmatically, you must first define its schema by adding data column objects to the data column collection. The data column is the fundamental building block for creating the schema of a data table. You build the schema by adding one or more data column objects to the data column collection. Each data column has a data type property that determines the kind of data the data column contains. For example, you can restrict the data type to integers, or strings, or data time. Because data that is contained by the data table is typically merged back into its original data source, you must match the data types to those in the data source. Now we will add rows to data table. A data row collection has an add method that receives an object array. The array must have the expected number of elements. You can create a new data row by using the new row method of the data table object. After creating a new data row, use the add method to add the new data row to the data row collection. Finally, call the accept changes method of the data table object to confirm the addition. Often we want to loop over our data table rows. We can be done with a for each loop. Now we will create a new column with ID name and set it as a primary key. The primary key of a table must be unique to identify the record in the table. It's also possible to have a table with a primary key made up of 2 or more columns. DataTable is a powerful, convenient class. To it we added data. We added columns. We added rows. DataTable is faster in Windows Forms than manually adding rows. It reduces complexity. If we change the ID value from 8 to 7 when run the program, throw an exception. Because we set ID column as a primary key, you can't add duplicate ID value into the data table. Thank you for watching this video.